Welcome to my review of the largest and most expensive LEGO Star Wars set ever made in the 2025 UCS Death Star. It's set 75419 with 9,023 pieces and a retail price of, dramatic pause, $1,000. Yes, the first $1,000 LEGO set, at least in America, has finally happened. We'll start with the box art, or perhaps lack thereof, as there are a few stars around it, representing it being in space, although the red hue behind it kind of ruins that feel. Not a lot of real art here. It is mostly the black void, and I think that's fine, honestly, for a diorama type of set. If this were a different styled Death Star, I'd probably feel a bit differently about it, but I think the art is okay. I do find it interesting, though, that they didn't put the Imperial logo on the top left. They put a picture of the Death Star. Like, why not the Imperial logo like any other Imperial UCS set would get? And I didn't mix it up. This is officially an Ultimate Collector Series set, not a Master Builder Series set, as I had theorized. And the reason I think they have called this a UCS and not a MBS set is because it is more of a strictly for display type of set. Even though it does include a lot of minifigures like we would see in a lot of Master Builder Series sets, it's not Master Builder Series because it's not also a large playset. That doesn't mean this won't have a few functions here and there, or that you can't have creative play moving around with the minifigs, but objectively, the most expensive LEGO Star Wars set ever should not be labeled in a way that it feels like it's a toy for kids, and I really feel like they didn't want to have their first $1,000 set be called a Master Builder Series. They wanted it to be Ultimate, right? And honestly, after really thinking about it, I don't feel like UCS is the wrong term to attribute to a set like this. This is a UCS version of a Death Star diorama, which might not be what you were looking for, but that's what it certainly is, because there's certainly been a lot of controversy about the shape of this set and what people actually wanted out of a $1,000 Death Star. But let's move on. On top, we've got our minifigs, all 38 of them, much like the piece count and the price. It's a new record for a LEGO Star Wars set, so that's nice, although the quality isn't quite there. We'll get to those, of course, in a little while. Now, the sides of this box, depending on how you feel about the build, may make you feel a bit angry. One side shows this beautiful shot of a fully spherical, completed Death Star, and the other side, it's literally the side profile of the Death Star showing just how thin it is. Interestingly, though, in a 1-to-1 scale, so you gotta love that, just to give you maybe an idea of the size of the thing if you're in the store, even though the measurements are going to be on the back. And seeing the way they did that is really intriguing to me, especially with the fan reaction to the set, and also the side of the box showing the completed actual Death Star. Like, I don't know why they didn't just use a cool shot from Rogue One or from the movies or something. Like, it's this weird shot that's not actually from a movie. Maybe it's from one of the games or something that I'm not aware of because I don't play them, but like, it's a very odd picture to use, honestly, on the side of the box. The other side, of course, just the set, normal stuff. But anyway, the back of the box showing off some of the features and functions of the set, or more so just a bunch of the different rooms, as well, again, as the measurements of the Death Star on the bottom right. The back of the box, kind of bland feeling to me. The back used to be a sacred place of coolness, and it's just, this is boring to me. I don't know why that is. Now, opening up the top of the box underneath that minifigure panel, it's kind of like twisting the knife if you wanted a fully spherical Death Star, because it once again shows a fully spherical Death Star as well as all of the internal workings of the Death Star. I mean, people certainly didn't want that, but they wanted like minifigure spots inside of the Death Star, and to see that kind of represented on top definitely has to be like twisting the knife. It's a cool shot of the Death Star, certainly, but just given the controversy around this set, definitely feels weird. On the next pair of flaps, we've got this great sketch of the Death Star, as well as a quote from Grand Moff Tarkin saying, "Fear will keep the local systems in line, fear of this battle station." And then you flip open those flaps, and you find your 3 numbered boxes for the Death Star, which have a great shot of Darth Vader in front of the red Death Star plans or hologram. Just looks super cool here. Now, each of these boxes also have some very subtle LEGO designs, but they are kind of hard to see. You've got the bright lights that represent what we see in the hallways of the Death Star, as well as some LEGO lightsaber blades. And it's pretty cool because they actually light up to match the number of the box, going 1, 2, and 3. Now, as I pulled the top off these boxes, I was surprised to find even more imagery inside, as you get this view from the inside of the Death Star looking outside of it, and you can see some movie shots as well as some pictures that I think were made specifically for this box. I think my favorite is probably the movie shot of the Imperial shuttle approaching you. Gotta love that. I think they did a generally good job with the box art for this one, but honestly, I feel like they could have done better. I don't know what it is exactly, but something feels a little off about the way this whole box thing came together. It feels disconjointed. That's probably the best way I can put that. Now, inside of each of these boxes is an immense amount of numbered bags, as well as our instruction manual. Inside of the instructions, we've got little blurbs about each of the minifigs, as well as a good write-up about the Death Star. You can, of course, pause to read whatever you'd like here, and now we can move on to our minifigs. Now, getting into our minifigures, there are 38 of them in this set, and that is by far the most ever in a LEGO Star Wars set. Unfortunately, the quality with some of them is not quite there for a $1,000 Lego Star Wars set. So we'll dive into that on the particular minifigures. But starting out, we have 3 Luke Skywalkers. We've got Farm Boy Luke, who is new for this set, and I think looks quite nice. We've got Luke Skywalker in his Stormtrooper disguise, and that also does include the helmet, so you can swap out his hairpiece for the helmet. That's a very nice Luke in Stormtrooper disguise. And finally, we've got our Return of the Jedi Luke, who you can see with the green lightsaber there. I think it's a great trio of Luke Skywalker minifigs, and generally excellent quality there. We've got a single Princess Leia included in the set. She's pretty standard, slightly updated from the last time we saw her, but pretty standard. We've got Han Solo in his smuggler outfit, as well as Han Solo in his Stormtrooper outfit here. Same deal on the Stormtrooper thing as Luke, where the helmet is included to swap with that hairpiece, and so the 2 Han Solos are quite nice here. We also have Chewbacca, just a standard Chewbacca, nothing to write home about, of course. And then we've got Obi-Wan Kenobi, got the nice hood, the cape, blue lightsaber, nice printing. Haven't seen him, I think, since 2019, so it's nice to see him back in a set, and of course he's going to fit very nicely here in the hallways of the Death Star fighting Darth Vader. And then we get to one of the more controversial, perhaps the most controversial fig in this set, the C-3PO. In a $1,000 set, omitting the dual molded leg is unacceptable. We have previously had him in 3 other sets, a $100 diorama, a $140 buildable character, and a $240 UCS set. All of those had the dual molded legs, yet last year we saw the $500 UCS Jabba sail barge not get the dual molded leg, and this year with the $1,000 Death Star, we are seeing no dual molded leg. It's unacceptable that some of the most expensive sets in the history of the theme aren't getting the most high quality minifigs they possibly could. Absolutely unacceptable, disgusting behavior from Lego, absolutely trying to scam and rip off their fans. They clearly do not care about it, and it's just nasty work to me. I don't know what excuse they'll bring up if they even bother to answer anyone's question about this time. I mean, what are they going to say? The budget wasn't good enough? Like, it's a $1,000 Lego set. Make it happen. It needs 1 dual molded leg for C-3PO. Make it happen. Crazy, crazy work here by Lego. And then finally, we've got R2-D2. It's R2-D2. You've seen him before. He's got the back printing, of course. Nice stuff. Moving into our Imperial figures, we've got Grand Moff Tarkin, who I think is a good looking figure. However, once again, omits dual molded legs in a $1,000 set. How our Imperial officers aren't getting dual molded legs in this set, I don't quite understand, but they aren't. While this could have been a great all-time figure, it's still a nice figure. It's as good perhaps as the last one we saw back in 2016, but it is not up to the standard that Lego should be hitting in a $1,000 set in 2025. So I like it. It's fine. And for many people, they won't even think about the lack of dual molded legs, and that'll be whatever. But man, it hurts seeing in a $1,000 set, and it just distracts me from talking about anything else that's good about the figure. So Grand Moff Tarkin, there you go. Darth Vader up next. Same Darth Vader that we've seen in many sets before with the arm printing, red lightsaber. You got the removable helmet, of course, to see the face underneath. It's Darth Vader. Great figure there. Once again, with Emperor Palpatine, unfortunately, despite fan feedback, they have opted for the ugly, no pupil look for the eyes, and that is just not going to be it for me. Unfortunately, this figure, again, just kind of belongs in the trash bin, in my opinion. Just a terrible, terrible face, and it ruins the whole look of the figure. Next up, we've got the Imperial Dignitary, a very unique figure because we've never seen this one anywhere before in Lego Star Wars. Very interesting look with the almost all purple outfit. Certainly not something you see a lot in Lego Star Wars. A little bit of red showing through. That's nice. The face print's nice. Overall, nice figure. One that I'm happy to have. Definitely would have loved to get a second one here, but one is included, so that's nice. Next, we have Colonel Yularen, and he's a bit of a different case. I don't know if dual molded legs were quite the answer, but all white legs definitely don't seem right when, if you look in the movie, most of his legs clearly appear to be black. I mean, frankly, given what they did with Dedra from Andor, they really probably should have done the exact same thing to properly represent the way that it looks to keep that design consistency, right? Lego Star Wars is, after all about consistency whenever you call them out on anything. They'll just say consistency, consistency, but it's never actually consistent, and this is a great example of that. So you can see that figure right next to Dedra, and how it looks in the movie really is more so the way they did Dedra and not the way they actually did Yularen in this set. Next, we have Admiral Modi and General Taji. Both of these are characters we see seated at the table with Darth Vader, and I think Taji is the one that Darth Vader actually chokes, so it's very cool to get these two characters. I think Taji's hairpiece, frankly, sucks for him. It looks nothing like it does in universe. His hair looks so clean in Lego versus in universe. It looks like he has a really, really bad haircut, so I feel like this hairpiece doesn't represent that at all. The legs are, of course, going to be another downside here, where they should have included dual molded legs, you know, boots with the fur. Unfortunately, just not here. And so it's really cool to get these characters, but again, in a $1,000 set, not seeing that top quality that there should be is inexcusable, and I'm going to call it out every single time. Our next two figures are Director Krennic and Galen Erso, and they feel kind of like bonus figures to me because they aren't part of the diorama. They are just placed on the stand in front of the diorama. We'll come back to the actual stand in a minute, but Director Krennic, great looking figure here, white cape, great hairpiece, great face print, good torso design, good legs, everything is great on Director Director Krennic. Absolutely love the figure. And it's nice to see him back after many years since Rogue One. And then we finally get our Galen Erso, who we never saw as part of the original Rogue One sets. Great figure to have included in here, specifically because of his ties to the Death Star, of course. Looks pretty good in the mostly green outfit, and overall a great couple of what I feel like are bonus figures. I think the Imperial Protocol Droid 5D6 RA7 looks great here, especially with those gold printed eyes. I think those look particularly great. Next, we have 6 Stormtroopers included in the set, and that feels like a nice number until you actually start to fill out the scenes on the Death Star. I mean, in one of the pictures on the box, they show all 6 in one spot, which tells you they know they didn't include enough Stormtroopers. I mean, really, there should have been probably another 6 or 7 more Stormtroopers in the set, and for $1,000, why not? Especially when you're skimping on other minifigs. Clearly, you've got the extra budget somewhere to throw in a few more random Stormtroopers, and it definitely would have been nice. And I feel like they're just banking on people buying more of the battle packs, of course, to fill out the set or something, but it's something that, again, for $1,000 should be included. 6 is a nice number, but it's ultimately not enough, in my opinion. You've got a pair of Death Star gunners here. I think these look really good, and ever since their first introduction in 2014, the battle pack, they've had the great print on the side of the helmet, even with the blue and red dot. Always loved these figures. Next, we have a couple of Imperial crew members, and I do think these look like good figures, and everything that's going on with them is nice, especially the hairpiece for the female version with the hat and the hair combo. Love that. There are some missing attributes here. I mean, arm printing would have been nice for a $1,000 set. We saw arm printing on our Imperial crew member in the $700 UCS Imperial Star Destroyer way back in 2019. Why arm printing wasn't brought into this set? Of course, for consistency, after all. That's what LEGO Star Wars is all about. I don't know. I can't answer that for you. I think the question of whether or not these should have dual-molded legs is up in the air to me. In the original trilogy, I couldn't find a clear shot of them having dual-molded legs, but in Star Wars Rebels, it's the exact same looking style character, and they clearly have large black boots, which would require dual-molded legs to accurately represent, and that's just not here on these figures. So I feel like these needed both arm printing and dual-molded legs, and got neither of them, and you're still at $1,000. So sucks to suck, I guess. Next up, we've got 2 Imperial Navy troopers. Nice enough figs. Don't really care much for these, though. We've also got an Imperial Navy officer, just another figure to help fill your hallways or seats on the Death Star, and then the Imperial Shuttle pilot, which is cool because, of course, we get an Imperial Shuttle in the set. I was really excited to see this figure on the leaked list originally because I knew it meant we were going to be getting an Imperial Shuttle, so that was kind of cool. And then we've got a couple of Emperor's Royal Guards, more or less just the standard version of Royal Guard here with the dark red on the inside, the brighter red on the outside, and they've got some cool staffs, great looking figs. We have a very interesting Imperial Astromech droid here in R3T6. Love to see another unique Astromech droid design. And then finally, we have the Hot Tub Stormtrooper from the Skywalker Saga. Not the style you would imagine from the Skywalker Saga, probably, with the hearts all over the pants. This one with dual molded legs and a very interesting different design than I expected for a Hot Tub Stormtrooper, but I do believe this appears somewhere in the game. I certainly would imagine it has to, given the way they've labeled it, but my Google searching has yielded 0 results for a Hot Tub Stormtrooper that looks like the one that they have included in the set. And so I think that's enough proof that this isn't the design they should have gone with, and they should have gone with the heart-pantsed Stormtrooper instead. But hey, it's a Hot Tub Stormtrooper. I'm sure people will be happy with it regardless. And that is all 38 minifigs in the $1,000 UCS Death Star. I think the quality of them just isn't there. I think we needed a few more Stormtroopers. I know if you ignore all of the bad, it's all good, right? But yeah, I just don't see it for $1,000. Like, why are there so many blatant things that could have been better very easily? And I think LEGO could have done it all at a cost of like $10 to them. Like, I don't know why we can't get that extra bit of quality for us as fans paying the most amount of money ever for a LEGO set. Like, why is it even a question when it comes to the quality of the minifigs? I shouldn't be able to sit here and point out a dozen things that are wrong with them, but of course I can, because LEGO Star Wars just is the way it is. So 38 minifigs, a great number, the most ever in a LEGO Star Wars set, but the quality, and even comparing to cheaper sets, older sets, just is not there. It's not even like I'm asking for things that haven't been done before. So that is the minifigs for the Death Star. Next, we've got our display plaque, which is of course printed. It's what you want to see in a $1,000 set. You've got a blueprintish version of the Death Star on there, as well as plenty of information about it. And then to the right of that, you can place your minifigs with Director Krennic and Galen Erso, kind of the bonus figures like I mentioned, and they look great on there with that little build. So very nice little display plaque for your Death Star. Now here it is in all of its $1,000 glory, and it should come as no surprise to any of you that this set is absolutely massive. We'll do some size comparisons a little bit later on, but yeah, initial impressions, big build. We'll start up top with one of the biggest rooms in the set, in the Emperor's Throne Room. It looks like a really great representation of the scene, especially when you fit the minifigs in there. You've got the Emperor on the throne, you've got Darth Vader and Luke dueling it out, and then a couple of Emperor's Royal Guards, and you can also even throw in the Imperial Dignitary next to Palpatine. Now, interestingly, this whole scene is very similar to what we saw in a diorama set back in 2023, although it is slightly downscaled. You'll notice looking at the outline around the window piece, all of the little bits are slightly smaller than what we saw on the actual throne room diorama set. So this is a scaled down version of that, but a still very good representation of the scene. Just outside of that section, you've got this really cool cutout in the side of the Death Star where you actually have a large cannon built in. You can place both of your Imperial gunners here, and the cannon can move up and down. Pretty dang cool to have on the side of the Death Star. Now, our next section is just off to the left, and that is where we are going to find the first of the elevator doors. That one can be opened, and you can see there's a little platform to place a minifigure on inside of the elevator there. It works really well. There's a little knob on the very top of the Death Star right here. So as you twist the knob here, it can raise and lower that entire elevator thing, kind of just like the 2008 and 2016 Death Stars. Works really well, I'd say. And just to the left of that elevator door here, we've got another secret doorway that opens right up to that hot tub for the hot tub stormtrooper. And actually, if you had a keen eye on the box, there's a little rubber ducky in there. You can see that rubber ducky on the box. Pretty cool to see that little Easter egg. But this spot for the hot tub stormtrooper, really excellent. He fits right in there and looks pretty cool in the hot tub. So it's nice to have that as a little hidden room on top of the Death Star. The next section down here, just above the big laser you see, is going to be where our Imperial Navy trooper is behind that window. Looks super cool in there. Just a little room overlooking the laser and like the operations area behind that. Pretty dope to see. Now we've got this really sick looking control room here right behind the laser. And in that control room, unfortunately, all of the little details are done with stickers, which really does suck because obviously it's a $1,000 set. I think some of them are okay, but yeah, ultimately it's going to be stickers, and I think people aren't going to love that. And then as you go out of the control room here, you see the giant laser, and it is a giant laser, just absolutely massive on the end of this Death Star. No joke at all. It looks great, I think. Let's twist the Death Star to the side, actually. And looking at it dead on here, you can see this laser is just immense. Very scary looking. It's bigger than either of the older two Death Star lasers, and I think they've done a good job. I really love that they left, you can see like the translucent pieces. Like in previous Death Stars, they had all green all the way through, but because the green all just comes together in the middle, it's supposed to be translucent underneath for like the main laser. And so they actually did that properly here, and I think that in particular looks great. So absolutely love that. I kind of glossed over it, but there's a couple more elevator doors that lead into both of those rooms, both of which can be opened here. It works really well, just like you'd expect. Just below the laser section here, we have the detention block section. So you can see Han and Chewbacca shooting over at some of the Imperials that are in the other like control room. It is really cool because if you actually remove, let's grab our Han, grab our Chewbacca. If we remove them, you actually have access to the detention center. So you can kind of open this little door in here, and you're going to see Princess Leia inside. So you can bring in your interrogation droid or whatever it is you want to do and have them there. You also have, again, that room off to the side over here, and you can see a couple of the Imperial officers there. There's lots of control panels. They're all stickered inside. It's what you'd probably expect here for $1,000, of course, stickers. To the right of that, we've of course got another elevator door, and then something actually pretty cool. We'll zoom in here. You can see the reactor for the center of the Death Star through this little window here. Pretty cool little Easter egg on the inside of the Death Star, I gotta say. Like, it's just something fun. Obviously, no real functionality to blow up the Death Star or anything, but having that little reactor bit in there is just pure fun. On the middle right here, we've got a few more pretty important rooms, the largest of which is going to be the room with the tractor beam and the swing for Luke and Leia. Then we've also got the little Imperial meeting room, as well as the Vader's chamber, which technically apparently hasn't been seen on the Death Star, but I think it's fair to assume one would probably exist somewhere on the Death Star, even if we haven't seen it in canon. Either way, it kind of feels like Lego just threw it in there just to fill the space, perhaps. Even again, if we didn't see it in canon, I do think it makes a lot of sense for it to exist still on the Death Star. But we'll go in depth here, starting with the bigger room. The tractor beam generator looks truly amazing here. You can see Obi-Wan on it, and then you also have a stormtrooper just wrapping around trying to find him. Looks pretty cool. You've got some sticker designs for some of the details on it, and then as you look up, there's a little bit more above that. You've also got the doorways above that into the separate rooms, so one leading into the Imperial office, and then the Vader's chamber is completely walled off there. But yeah, back over to the little room here. You've got the upper section, which is where Luke and Leia are swinging across, so you can place them on that tile piece. So if we grab them in the middle here and pull them off to the right, you can let go of them and they will swing back and forth, which is pretty cool. Obviously, you want them to swing over to one side. Fun stuff regardless, but yeah, open on either side to their respective rooms. I think the design for this Imperial meeting room is frankly amazing. You can see the circular black table, you've got a bunch of chairs around it, and you can place minifigs in any of the chairs. The issue I have is that they don't quite include enough officers to fill all of the chairs, so I do wish they included more. You end up really with a couple of empty chairs that shouldn't be. The whole room looks really faithful though to A New Hope, and it's really great to see this awesome representation of the room. It's better than anything we've ever seen for this room before. Like I said, just needed more minifigs. Next, we have Vader's meditation chamber, and this is a really good small representation of the medical chamber. We've seen a much larger version of this, and for a scaled down version, this is great, especially compared to other scaled down versions that we've had in the past. But you can actually take your Darth Vader here, and you can place him, as long as you sit him down, place him inside here. So you sit him down, and then the whole top can actually drop down just a little bit here, and you can have it basically closed off. And then if we look just behind that, you can see this hologram of Palpatine, or screen with Palpatine, and that's really cool to see back there. Just really nice to have that little detail. Now below that, we've got another really cool room. You've got a lot of great control panel detail in here. As you zoom in, you can see a lot of that going on. You see Han with his feet kicked up in the chair, and the chair actually, as you can see here, it is going to swivel if you want it to. You also can lay their weapons on either side of them, and then yeah, it's a pretty spacious room, I'd say, with Han and C-3PO in there. Very, very nice little control room, just hidden down here on kind of the bottom right section of the Death Star, but obviously a needed addition. We're down to our final few rooms here on the bottom of the Death Star, including the massive hangar with the Imperial shuttle, but we'll come right back to that. We'll start with the hallway where Han Solo is. First time we've actually had this scene represented, but seeing him run along there with the stormtroopers behind him is pretty cool. You've got the really cool Imperial lights in there, and yeah, really nice looking hallway, mouse droid and everything. And then just below that, we've got the trash compactor. Really cool representation of the trash compactor. You got a little trash in there. You can throw your minifigs in there and have them get crushed by the trash compactor, because there's actually a knob on the back side of the Death Star here where if you spin it, it will actually close the trash compactor doors, thus crushing your minifigs inside. Now there is also the Dianaga eye and everything included there, so you can have that in there and that can look pretty cool. But let's move on to the hangar, because I think this is probably one of my favorite parts of the Death Star. Of course, you've got the Imperial shuttle. That's amazing. We'll come back to that. I really got to say, I love the craftsmanship for the backside of this particular area, because you've got the black void of space, right? You can't have this just be like clean through whatever, both for structural reasons and just like the design language of the set. You got to have some sort of back wall. So doing the all black back wall makes sense, but then adding on these little stars make it feel extra lifelike, which I think is really cool. Like, I think they did a great job with that in particular. You also got this little spot for R2 down there alongside the elevator shaft. I mean, that still continues the rest of the way down the middle of the Death Star. Actually, it's a little bit offset, I should say. It's not exactly the middle, but just all the way at the bottom there, another elevator door next to R2-D2 where you have him kind of working on a little control panel. But look over to the right, you can have some of the stormtroopers standing out in the landing pad area, as well as that large Imperial shuttle, or at least relatively large for the set, I suppose. It's much smaller than previous playset versions of the Imperial shuttle, but we can grab it by the wing here. Pretty, I guess relative again to some of the older playsets, small feeling model. I gotta say, for its size, this is a really clean Imperial shuttle build. It's small, but actually looks really good. It's completely tiled off. Basically, there's almost no studs showing. It's got this nice little sticker detail for the ventilation there, which on previous sets, of course, was printed back in the early 2000s, but hey, $1,000 set, what do you expect? Now we can go ahead and open the cockpit up here. You can actually take your Imperial shuttle pilot, and we will place him in there, just like that. Close that back up, and because it's all black on top, you can't really see inside, but pretty cool that you actually can still, even though he has to like lay down and everything, fit a minifigure inside of this very small Imperial shuttle. You can grab both wings, drop them down. We'll actually go ahead and pick this thing up, drop the wings the rest of the way down on both sides, and it flies around like a pretty normal Imperial shuttle, just at a smaller scale. So pretty cool to actually have that, and even cooler perhaps that it actually fits in the bay of the Death Star, but we'll move on. I wanted to briefly show you the backside of the Death Star. It is really quite messy, but that's not honestly a big deal here because, of course, this is going to be pushed up against a wall or the back of a shelf in almost every case for a buyer. There are very few people, I think, that would even have a house big enough where this would make sense to have in the middle of a room or something. So ultimately, it makes the most sense that this is kind of a messy back, and so it is going to be pushed up against something. That's fine. So I thought it would be quite fitting to compare the sizes of all three large Death Stars that LEGO has done. Technically, 2008 and 2016 are two separate ones, but for the purposes of our demonstration, they are the same here. So I've got one representing both. We've also got the 2005 UCS one, and you can see this new Death Star is just comparatively so massive. I mean, it's insane to see in real life. It's much taller, much wider. It is much skinnier, though, than, of course, these spherical Death Stars, which is what a lot of people wanted out of this newer Death Star. So understandably, people will be disappointed with that. But as a diorama, as an adult collectible, something you're going to put against a wall or the back of a shelf and have display all of like the coolest scenes ever from the Death Star. I mean, there's a lot of really cool stuff in here. Like, I think it makes a lot of sense for what they were able to come up with at $1,000. Like, you didn't want to do a playset for $1,000 because it's not something kids are going to be getting. And if you do a fully globed Death Star like this and then have an interior, well, then you can only access the interior or use the exterior properly one at a time. And so you're basically paying for both things, but you can only use one at a time, and I didn't like that. So I like either you pick one or the other, or you do something like this, and I kind of like that they did something like this. I think it's fun. I think it's outside of the box, and, you know, for a UCS set to be so different is kind of cool to me, you know, in a weird way. I thought I was going to hate it. I'm going to be honest. I really thought I was going to hate it. I don't hate it anywhere near as much as I hate it, especially now seeing it in person. Just the size is massive. It's about the size of the UCS Millennium Falcon on its side, for reference. So that is the big old Death Star. Let me give you my final thoughts. Look, the first $1,000 LEGO Star Wars set was always going to be a tough sell, and this one didn't do itself any favors. It first off subverted almost everybody's expectations. A lot of people, when they hear $1,000 Death Star, immediately thought, myself included, big spherical Death Star with an interior. And while I think what they've come up with for a $1,000 Death Star isn't horrible, like, that's just not where your mind was originally. Can you be convinced to like this? Sure, I think so. I think there is some potential in what we've got here, but the other thing this set does so horribly wrong for $1,000 is not giving the best possible quality minifig at every turn. There should be no question marks about the quality of the figures in this set. I shouldn't be able to sit here and point out 5 or 6 different figures that needed to have dual molded legs, that needed to have arm printing. You know, that sort of stuff should have been handled by LEGO for free for the entry price of this set. Outside of those issues, despite initially thinking I'd hate it, I find myself kind of liking this Death Star. It's a very intriguing model to me. They've done something that I never would have expected, and in a generally outside of the quality of the minifigs good way. I think a lot of value in LEGO sets can be pretty subjective from person to person, and I can't sit here and tell you I really think this is worth $1,000 because it ultimately probably isn't, knowing the way that LEGO has operated with Star Wars over recent years. They will take things and just randomly increase the price to make them more expensive anyway, so you know this set was probably originally going to be $900 or $850 or $800. You know, this was probably not originally a $1,000 set, but here we have it, the first $1,000 LEGO set. Should you buy it for $1,000? I don't really think so. I think LEGO has not given you the top quality product that they should for the price. But is it kind of cool? Yeah. But is kind of cool enough to get you to spend $1,000? I really don't think so. So let me know your thoughts on the first $1,000 LEGO Star Wars set in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this amazing review of the UCS Death Star for 2025, leave a like, and you can check out more LEGO Star Wars 2025 set reviews on the end screen now.